Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of Monday, March 2nd, 2020. Please rise and bow your heads for a prayer by Reverend Hank Rosso.
Thank you. Our Heavenly Father, as we come to you tonight, we thank you for this fine community that we enjoy and love so much. Lord, I thank you that Watertown isn't a perfect town, because I wouldn't feel comfortable here. I'd feel out of place. But I thank you, Lord, that we have some of the greatest things going in any community I can recall. I thank you for these leaders who give sometimes so selflessly of their time and their talent. I thank you for the administration that works with our mayor and for their talents, Lord. I thank you for each one of these council members, as we know sometimes it is a real sacrifice as they're here and their families are missing them. God, we thank you for our law enforcement, both the police and our sheriff's department here. And we thank you that you've called them to protect us and serve us. Lord, we have such a great, fine group of men and women who do that so well. We pray that you continue to keep them safe, keep your hand upon their families, and be with them while their loved one serves. And likewise with our fire department. And we pray that you'll continue to keep them safe as they do their job to protect us. And finally, God, we ask your hand of protection on each one here, each family, and each one in our community. We ask for guidance and direction this meeting tonight. And we thank you for the unity that we all share in this common bond we have with our love for Watertown. And these things we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Okay. Albertson?
Here.
Bueller? Absent. Hoyer?
Here.
Holeen? Here. Lallam? Absent. Manti? Here. Rademski?
Here.
Roby?
Here.
Billhauer?
Here.
Y?
Present.
Thank you.
All right, the first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda, and I would like to remove item 5J from the consent agenda and add item 8G to the consent agenda. Have a motion by Y and a second by Manti. And any discussion? We took off 5J and we added 8G. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Next, item 6 is the public comment period. And if anyone is here to speak before the council, this is the time. Seeing no one, we'll move on. Item number 7 is approval of the agenda. And so we have item 8G was removed, so that one change. So moved. Motion by Billhauer and a second by Albertson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 8 is the regular agenda. A is application for a temporary location transfer and return of a retail on-sale liquor license owned by Zeus Inc., doing business as 2nd Street Station, as follows. 1, for the period of 4 o'clock p.m. March 6, 2020 to 2 a.m. March 7th, 2020 from 15 2nd Street Southwest to 1910 West Kemp. And I understand this is for the Cottington County Pro Pheasants Banquet. And I'll look for a motion. Motion by Manti. Second by Albertson. And I will go ahead and open the public hearing and ask if anyone is here to speak on this item. Please come forward. See no one, I will close the public hearing. Council, do you have any questions or comments? Councilman Roby?
I'll recuse myself from this item.
Noted. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. And then A2 is for the period after 2:01 a.m. March 7th, 2020, from 1910 West Kemp to 15 2nd Street Southwest. So I will open the public hearing again, see if anyone is here to speak about this. Please come forward. See no one, I'll close the public hearing. Any conversation, council? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify. Oh, I need a motion, sorry. Motion by Hoyer and a second by Mantee. Now I will look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 8B is the library annual report presentation by our library director, Dee Dee Whitman.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just going to get things ready to go here. Looks my. Thank you, Mitch. I appreciate it. Okay. Do I have control over the actual slides themselves? Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to start with just a little introduction about what the report is and why we do it. So every year we report statistics to the South Dakota State Library, and in turn they report those to the IMLS, which is the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And so we're going to be going over some of that data with some comparisons over the last few years. But before I get going with that, I just wanted to say that right now, in the current budget climate, both the South Dakota State Library and the Institute for Museum and Library Services are facing some scrutiny during the budget process. So if you are a lover of libraries like I am, contact your legislatures. Let them know that the state library is important to you and that library funding is important to you as well. The IMLS actually distributes grants to each of the states, and in South Dakota, the South Dakota State Library administers those funds through a number of different programs, things like really expensive databases that our community could not afford, our schools could not afford, training for librarians across the state, other professional development opportunities, the Braille and Talking Book program, a lot of things, and I haven't even mentioned them all. But I just want to put in my plug for both of those institutions. Next, I want to talk about our mission statement, and that's connecting people to the joy of reading, information, and lifelong learning. And this statement was crafted back in 2018, and we used it as a guideline for our current strategic plan, which will expire in 2024. And I didn't move this slide. I moved my page, but not the slide. So there's our mission statement. And then I'll come back to the previous slide. So these were our 5 goals that we outlined in our strategic plan. And but in general, we're always looking to grow and improve the number of visitors to the library, the number of items circulated, the number of programs and people who attend our programs. So that general growth and improvement is also an important part of our library. And we've done a number of things to meet these goals, including focusing on our staff development, getting our staff to regional and national conferences to bring back ideas for our community, and then as well doing local training here. We've done it on security, on mental health, on CPR, and we've had a lot of great collaborations between the PD and the fire department helping us out with those trainings, as well as HR and the implementation of the new EAP program, which has a number of resources that we've used on their online trainings and webinars. So we're also looking to continually grow in the technology we bring to the community, and I have to give big thanks to our IT department. In the last year, all of the library computers were replaced and upgraded. So thank you, IT department. That was a lot of work. And then we're still looking to improve with that new print and time management software that will be coming in the next month or so. So I'm actually going to back up one slide here, because we have a lot of bright spots. I mentioned that we've been having a lot of growth in library visitors for the first time since 2015. So I'm really excited about that. The overall holdings that we can offer to our community, our program attendance in all age groups, circulation for physical and digital materials, our database usage, our special services circulation, our users, and then our total collection use. So lots of bright spots. But I will say that none of that can be possible without our amazing staff. So the staff that I've featured here are not the only ones that are amazing in our organization, but I featured them because on the left is our young adult services, young adult library specialist who won the 2019 Librarian of the Year award, and it was being presented to her by our assistant city librarian, Maria Gruner. So how lovely is that? We had multiple staff members participating and being recognized for their work. Additionally, in 2019, Maria wrote a grant for an ALA traveling exhibit, which will be coming to the library in July of 2020. So a wonderful resource for the community. It's called Americans and the Holocaust, and it will be here from July 7th until August 18th. And I mentioned these are just two of our fantastic staff members. We have so many, from our shelvers to our desk aides to our library specialists, office specialists, maintenance workers. They help us do what we do for the community. And in the same way, our patrons are the reasons why we do what we do. So thank you to our patrons as well. So we're going to jump into the numbers now. Are you ready? We're going to start with our holdings. And I'm probably going to sound a little bit like a broken record because we have a lot of increases throughout this data, which is fantastic. For both our books and our ebooks, we have increases. And if you notice here, specifically with the ebooks, there are two different groups. One is the SDTG, that is South Dakota Titles to Go. That is what is provided through the state library with consortia around the state. And then the other is ebooks for WRL, so for our individual library. We're going to move on to our audio, video, and other holdings. So it's both physical audio and then downloadable audio. And that downloadable is, again, broken into two groups, South Dakota and Watertown. And then there's the total, which we can see an increase there, as well as increase in the next category, the physical video. And you might notice this little low spot. We're going to address that in a little bit. We actually don't have very many holdings in our digital video. It's a place that we're looking to increase and add to our collections. We do have one small resource right now, and we are analyzing a number of different vendors that can provide content that people want at a price that we can afford. So everybody really wants the library to provide free Netflix or Hulu, and unfortunately that's not something we can do. But we do have some resources to evaluate and hopefully get started here in our community. And lastly, the other is just that, other. We've got things like educational kits for kids. We have some equipment that patrons can actually check out for a small fee, like a projector or an outdoor speaker and projector screen, things like that. This is an area, though, that we're looking to develop. There's a concept around the country called the Library of Things. I recently was doing some outreach to the farm show, and we brought our ukuleles, which are going to be our first addition to the Library of Things. And we had a lot of interest in checking out a ukulele, and it'll be a kit with a ukulele and a book and a tuner. So if anybody wants to take up ukulele, they're going to be available soon. We're just trying to work out that last bit of storage. We need to make sure that we're protecting the ukuleles while they circulate. So more good things coming. In terms of our electronic collections, again, we see local electronic collections and then what the state provides. And the state did a year, 18-month-long evaluation of what databases they were providing, got rid of some, added a few more, and they added some really cool ones in my mind. I know I'm kind of an information database dork because I'm a librarian, but some of the cool ones are consumer reports, and you can just one of the best things for us is that we get a lot of questions about that, so we can let people know, hey, you can just go and get all of that free information on this website. As well as my other favorite is it's called Little Miss Humblebee's Academy, and it's a resource entirely for early childhood learning. So preschoolers, first, second grade, things like that. They can take tests, they can play games, and tests. Okay, the games are more fun than the tests, but it helps assess their learning and their development, so a great resource for parents. So then our total library holdings are up by 8% from last year, so a good improvement there between our resources and the state resources. We'll next move on to our library service indicators, and we see here that we are flat in terms of our library hours, which is fine. I think we have some really nice hours to offer our community. But I think the great thing is that in those same hours, we've offered more reference help to our community, as well as recruited or acquired more registered users, so more library borrowers. Next is that total library attendance I was mentioning earlier, and we have actually for a number of years been seeing a decline in our library attendance. We've been trying to evaluate that. We think a lot of it is due to the growth of online materials, and we have been seeing growth in our ebooks and our e-audiobooks and things like that. And it may not be a monumental increase, but I'm really excited to see that increase after a number of years of a slide of our physical visitors. Next, we'll move to circulation of our physical materials. And we have increases in books, a small decrease in magazines, and a small decrease in our DVDs and CDs and things of that nature, but there's still really high usage. In fact, our DVDs are one of our most popular items. But overall, we do have an increase from 2018 for our physical item circulation. Then we move on to electronic materials, which we've been talking about before too. We see increases in ebooks, in audiobooks, slight increase in our digital video. I mentioned before that we don't have a huge collection with that. But then in the total, it's close to 6,000 in additional circulations from the previous year. So continued growth in our electronic materials. So we want to keep developing those collections and finding more opportunities to provide those services like streaming services to our patrons. In terms of our database usage, we've also seen an increase in both the South Dakota provided databases and the databases that we provide. One of the big increases from 2018 to 2019 is in our Lynda resource. I know some of you are familiar with that. It went from 1,000 uses in 2018 to 4,000 in 2019. So a lot of growth there. And it was threatened a little bit when Lynda was going to be changing their platform to something that compromised patron privacy. At that point, we decided to discontinue the resource, but eventually Lynda has reversed their decision on that. So we're able to maintain our access to Lynda and all of those great resources that people like without compromising patron privacy, which is something we don't do. It is the way. So here we can see that we have an overall increase in our physical materials as well as an increase to our children's materials of any format, just giving us an idea of the importance of children's materials in our overall circulation. Okay. And finally, our total collection use, we see a big jump back up to 2017 levels, which again, was very excited about, and that's actually a 5.9% increase from last year in 2018. Moving on to one of my favorites, children's programming. We had an increase in our program attendance in a year where we unfortunately lost our children's librarian, and she left us in June, and we missed her very much. She did a very great job. But then that's the middle of our summer reading program. So all of our staff had to work around and change their roles a little bit and make that happen. That's the busiest time of year. So even with that loss, and we weren't able to replace her until September, we were still able to have increases in our programming attendance. And then we looked for more opportunities to grow when our new children's library specialist came on board, Sarah. So I think that's quite the accomplishment there. And again, we've got more increases in our adult programming and our young adult programming. Young adult programming is for kids in grades 5 through 12. And I mentioned the exhibit before. We're hoping for additional growth with that. And in terms of our young adults, it's just been kind of a word of mouth thing. More kids and teens are seeing what's going on. They're seeing how much fun kids are having at the library. And so I think we'll continue to see some growth there. Maybe not huge, but growth. And then the last bit of data on this slide is our one-to-one programs, and this is when we're doing one-on-one training with patrons. So they might need help on how to use the Linda resource, for example. So that's just one example of a one-to-one program transaction, and these are also counted in the overall reference transactions. So when we get to our total library program, we are looking to be about the same number of programs, just a couple more, but then with a 25% increase in attendance. So that is, again, in my mind, demonstrative of how amazing our staff is. So we've got great things that they're planning and executing and attracting people to the library. We've just got a few more service areas. One is internet usage. So we've had some variations in the number of computers over the years, and to me that's been just fine. Some have been moved to different areas, or we decided we didn't need them for that specific purpose. Our internet sessions are up a little bit from the previous year, as well as our wireless sessions. And for annual website visits, you can see there was 0 data for 2017. They were not asking us for that data, so we did not collect it.
Councilman Vilhauer has a question.
Sorry.
Dee Dee, as long as we're on this slide, I know a few years ago it was kind of a controversial topic at the time as far as putting filters on our internet. I mean, has that been all taken care of, resolved? I mean, working okay? Any comments along those lines?
Sure, I would say that it's working okay. We have not had a lot of complaints, although there have been some. And when I say complaints, I really mean either really an issue with accessing particular information. And as a librarian, I'm not a huge fan of filters for that reason, because it can limit access to information, but it can also limit the nasty stuff, if you will, right? So I think that what we have in place has been doing a decent job of that. And at this point, I don't think that there should be any major change unless there's some issue with that provider, or because they do allow us some flexibility. They have the keywords that they've assigned to X, Y, and Z websites, and if they're flagged inappropriately, like it's just the wrong kind, we can let them know, and they can make some changes to that.
Thank you.
And true, we're not going to know until somebody makes that search and we find it, and we haven't really seen any negative impact of that. We haven't had a single patron say, I'm not going to use your resource because your internet is filtered. We have some initiatives we're looking to start, but we're not sure about how the filtering would work, and that's circulating hotspots. A lot of libraries around the country, again, this has become one of the library things that has been very popular. A number of libraries in South Dakota do it, and across the Midwest, and that's something we have not resolved yet, so it's kind of on a back burner, but we're working on it. Any other questions before I keep going? Yes, Dan.
Briefly tell people about the Linda, what that means. You mentioned it.
Oh, of course.
I had never heard of it before you explained it to us at the board meeting, so.
Well, what it is, and you should all go to watlib.org and check it out. It's a resource that has more than 6,500 courses on a number of topics, everything from technology, software, to customer service. You can even get ukulele and guitar lessons. So it's such a broad scope of courses, and they all are, there are videos, there are, what's the word I'm looking for? There are like just downloadables, worksheets and things like that. So you can use them for professional development, personal development. So I've done some of the customer service ones. I've looked at some of the technology ones and thought, oh, I'm maybe a little bit over my head, but I should go back and check that out. Michael, do you have a question?
So I'll help plug a little bit with lynda.com. When I went through my graduate program, one of our courses utilized Lynda for the entire course. So when I learned Pro Tools, which is a professional audio editing software, the entire class was based off of a Lynda class. And you literally just log in. It's video tutorials. They walk you through it step by step. You can learn Photoshop. You could learn Illustrator. This is an awesome supplement to the high school. I don't know if they still do the multimedia course anymore. I don't believe they have that since they can utilize Lake Area now. But you could arguably circumvent an entire four-year degree program just doing lynda.com. It is that in-depth and that high of caliber. So
And it's free.
well, here it's free,
Yes,
I believe,
yeah.
because I pay money to utilize it.
Yours wasn't. It's free for your library members.
All you need is a library card.
Yeah,
Right,
if you have a
so-
library card. I've used it too, and I've used it for hobby things, but I also used it to take a little accounting course, and I entered the word accounting, and I had like 10,000 choices, literally. I had to really narrow it down. There's
Yeah.
so many.
I'm really just trying to drive that home hard because, like, I think people don't realize how big of an asset that actually is. Like, it is huge. You are literally taking college level, whatever, tutorial courses with video, walking you through step by step. They're beautiful. So if folks aren't using them and you have a slight interest in anything,
You really should, yeah.
you will go down the rabbit hole on Lynda. So
And they
that's
do.
amazing.
I'm sorry. They do have like not just courses, but tracks, if you will. So they're like, do you want to be a graphic designer? Go take all these courses. So there are a number of fields where you may or may not need a certain credential. You may just need the skills. Can you do the job? And some of those things can be accomplished in Lynda.
Oh, Councilwoman Manti?
I just wanted to make one comment, and that's the posting you use on social media. I'm only on Instagram, but they are fun, warm, inviting. You know, we're going to do coffee, we're going to color, we're going to do all these things, and they're repeated and they're there. And I really think you're doing a good job with that, because I wish sometimes that I was home so I could come and have coffee and color. But no, just all those types of things. They're framed in such a way that, you know, really makes you want to come to the library.
Well, thank you. I'll definitely pass that on to Jamie. She does handle all of our social media. And since she took that over, it's just been great. It's been consistent. It's been fun. I actually have a few examples after all of the numbers today. So, oh, sorry, was there another question? I just missed it. Okay. Next, we have one of our tried and true services, our interlibrary loan. So that's items that we loan from other libraries or that we loan to other libraries. And it's been a really solid, stable service throughout the years. And we have had some growth in this past year too. So good news for one of our core services. Next, I'm going to chat really quickly about special services. We do have a special services library specialist who selects and delivers materials to the homebound, whether they're living in their homes or if they're in care facilities. And this has been a big bright spot for us this year because we saw a 70% increase in book circulations to those folks. And so I just want to give, we actually had two in 2019, Lisa Solom, again, who left us and moved, and then also Josh Folkart, and they both did a great job in 2019 reaching folks who are homebound. We also had a new service initiated in 2019, and that's our daycare delivery service. And it really started out with a bang. Between the 4 child care centers and 2 home daycare centers, 3,500 plus books were delivered, and we are expecting that to grow over the next year as well. And I want to say thank you to Building Services. We worked with them to make sure that the daycares in the city that are registered with the city are know about the service, and so we're hoping to send out some more mailings to them again. And that was one of the requirements for the service, that they be registered with the city and that they be within the city limits. And finally, for you data junkies out there, if you're looking at the actual annual library report, if you go to page 11, there are a number of what the state calls selected key ratios that will compare 2019 and 2018, as well as the statewide average for 2018. So even though I didn't include those in my presentation, you can check those out if you're curious how we're comparing around the state. So I promised some fun after the numbers, so here it comes. So these are the posts with the most engagement for us on Facebook. So we can see a few here that are actually relating to our Christmas tree fundraiser. That happens in December, but then the winners are announced in January. So these are the winners from January 2019. We also had a lot of fun with our escape room. So that had a lot of engagements, as well as something that I find so endearing about our patrons in our community. When we ask for help, they're there. You know, we ask for paper towel rolls so we can make crafts. And we've done that in all sorts of ways. So people are very generous with helping us with our supplies. And then I think this one's the probably the most fun, because people love bacon, right? And this is no different. So it's replace any word in a book or movie title with the word bacon and post below. And there are ones like Gone with the Bacon or The Wizard of Bacon, things like that. It was really funny. We also had some great engagement on Twitter. Facebook is actually our highest engagement social media platform. But here on Twitter, our most liked tweets were book reviews, our popular coffee and coloring. Maybe we just need to do some outreach to council with some coffee and coloring for one of your meetings. We do outreach around the community. It's not outside of our purview. And then promoting our summer reading. And then this one actually makes me chuckle every time I read it. I love how relevant it is to things going on just in the world in general. So we created a display and tweeted, Disney Plus is cool, but so is our extensive Disney movie collection. We have over 300 Disney movies and TV series. So if you have Disney Plus, fantastic. If you don't, come get the DVDs from the library. And then here are some photos from our programs. I mentioned that one of our goals was provide a wide variety of programs for all ages. And so these are some of the things that we had going on in 2019. If you're looking over on your left, that is not a wounded person. It is somebody who came to our Halloween makeup class. So they were just working on their gory Halloween makeup.
Looks real.
It does, doesn't it? One of our staff members, Jackie, was, she's kind of a Halloween makeup extraordinaire, and so she came and hosted that for us. In this next picture, it's our special services library specialist, Josh Folkart, and he's teaching an adult tackle crafting class. So, and we found out after hosting this class that people were really interested in making fishing lures and things with their kids. So there was a lot of interest for family programming like this too. I will say, I don't know if it's for me though. I managed to put the hook on the carpet, on my sweater, and on my finger. So yeah, it was a fun program though. Right. I don't really fish either though, so. Other things that we have going on is our fabulous story time with, this is our new children's librarian specialist, Sarah. This was that outreach, a new outreach opportunity this year. We went to Zubu for the first time and saw tons and tons and tons of kids. This is our summer reading program, Carnival, where we had around 300 people attend. In addition, on the right hand here is our Frozen Party, which we also had about 300 people attend. So lots of great children's programs going on. This program right here with the sewing, that is a program that Jamie partnered with Chris O'Brien at the high school, and they had some of the kids that were in their anime club come and learn to sew so they could make costumes about their favorite manga characters. So just a very cool project. And then here we have our coffee and coloring. Did I say that already? I might have. And our knitting and crochet. And finally, the Friends of the Library are big supporters of the library, as their name suggests. But they also have a program committee, and they sponsor a number of programs at the library throughout the year. This particular picture is of the fantastic Bill Zupke, whose program was Dare to Fail. So lots of variety. Speaking of variety, we have a lot of things coming up. I mentioned that technology upgrade coming. We have National Library Week, April 19th through the 25th. The Friends of the Library Big Book Sale, April 17th, 18th, and 19th. That is going to be at the County Fair Banquet Hall. Our summer reading program and the Americans in the Holocaust exhibit, July 7th through the August 18th. So mark your calendars. It's going to be really, really fascinating. From what Maria's been saying about it so far, it's going to be really thought-provoking. It's detailing Americans' experience during the time of the Holocaust, and what we knew, what we didn't know, and it's not going to be presented with any historical hindsight. It's going to be presented from the lens of people at the time. So we're really excited about that, and we're excited about the full program schedule that's going to be coordinating, coming with that. Okay, so before I ask if you have any more questions, I just wanted to say that libraries can truly impact lives in positive ways. And one example I had was working with a family who came up to the desk. They've got tons of books, they've got tons of DVDs, and the dad said, "Oh, we love the library." And he said, "I came here last fall when we moved to town, and it helped me find a job. And then we've been coming ever since. We love it. And as the city librarian, I love it too." So if you have any questions for me, though, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Yes, Councilman Albertson.
I don't necessarily have a question, but the high school has put a grant into the Arrow Education Foundation that is going to tie in with the Holocaust group or the procedure that's coming in there. So it has trickled back to the education system also. So they're really looking forward to it.
And typically, we would have liked to host students had the exhibit been scheduled during the school year. And so Maria's had to do some extra work, and she's been having some great collaboration with Chris and others at the library in order to get some programming for the students in the high school and the middle schools. And I think they were working out some logistics, and they're trying to settle down for the speakers, and I know that grant will be put to good use.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, could I ask a question?
Sure.
I was just wondering how the total library attendance is calculated. Is there a something that clicks when you walk
Yes.
in? Is there? Okay.
Yeah, we have door counters on each door. Both of them managed to fail this month. But they're back in order.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda is C, second reading of ordinance number 20-07, repealing the election by majority requirement for aldermanic and mayoral elections. A motion by Vilhauer and a second by Holene. Matt, would you please explain this to us?
Yes, Mayor. This approval tonight of this ordinance will remove the requirement currently in our ordinances that candidates for election to the city council or mayor must receive a majority vote to be elected, thereby requiring runoffs if there's no majority after the vote. Essentially, what we chose to do is to just repeal the ordinance rather than try to mimic state law. So what we will do then, if this is approved this evening, would just rely on state law, which states that the person receiving the most number of votes it will be declared the winner.
All right, thank you. We've already got them. Bill Howard made the motion already, but thank you, Josh. Appreciate that. Councilman Vilhauer?
Just a couple comments, because I was one that brought this forward initially a month ago, and Matt, thank you so much for following up on this. I'm really very supportive of this, and I would ask that my fellow council members also support it. I really think it will tend to simplify the electoral process, and hopefully maybe even spur some candidates that may be on the fence about running, hopefully maybe even spur some additional interest of running because we are simplifying it, in my opinion, the process somewhat. And obviously the cost savings involved too, if and when we do have to have a runoff election.
Right, thank you. Councilman Roby?
I also am in favor of this. I was just going to comment that I'm surprised I got absolutely zero comments on this. And usually on something like a lot of the issues, if there's some opposition, you'll hear something. So I've heard nothing, so I'm going to make the assumption that the public's good with it, and I'm good with it too.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item D is the first reading of ordinance number 20-08, approving and establishing the zoning designation of C3 Highway Commercial District, which upon annexation will be known as the Lakes of Willow Creek First Edition. And there's no action required here, but Heath, if you'll please tell us about this one, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The action before the council tonight, or not action, but the first reading before the council tonight is related to a annexation and zoning. This is the first reading of the zoning component for a 2.3 acre parcel that is contiguous to the city limits. This area of interest is immediately adjacent to what's currently known as the Stromseth East Side Addition. There's a small, this 2.3 acres was not included at the time of that Stromseth East Side Addition annexation and platting, but is now under new ownership, and the current owner would like to add this 2.3 acres to this area for zoning. And so upon annexation, which will be in action at the subsequent council meeting, and we will also have the second reading for this rezone so that they coincide with one another. And the 2.3 acres will then subsequently be annexed and zoned to C3 upon that approval.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions, Council? Councilman Hoyer?
I guess it's kind of a tie-in to the next piece as well, just because they're trying to rezone all of it to C3. What are the guidelines for C3? I'm kind of confused that it's going to highway commercial when it's not on a highway.
Yeah, great point, Councilman Hoyer. And I do have the urban planner, Brandy Hanton, here today, and she might have her book or know off the top of her head better than I will what the allowed uses are. But generally speaking, the C3 Highway Commercial District isn't necessarily locked in or required to be adjacent to the highway routes. I mean, it is one of the, obviously by its name, it's one of the natures of that district to accommodate those areas of land. But Brandy, if you'd want to chime in any more is in relation to the use of that district.
Yeah, and Heath's kind of right. It's just our really only option for commercial activity. And that's why right now, too, we're implementing the Lake Commercial District and just trying to add options, because typically we would like to see the C3 highway commercial be adjacent to highways or arterials.
Generally, though, the commercial zoning classifications are the C1, which is the central business district, and it has no setbacks. It's meant to be walkable. C2 is in neighborhoods, and it's the little things that just serve the people who live around the area ideally. And C3 is the kind, they call it highway, I think, because you have to drive to get there. That's to serve the people who are coming from across town to go there. It's not their neighborhood, but it's something you would travel to, and people from outside of town. And then so those are our only choices right now.
Yeah, and C3 is the most appropriate for what we have to work with for this area and what they're proposing.
So if you're inviting people from outside of the neighborhood to shop, it needs to be along a major street, which this is. It's not a highway, but this is a major street, Willow Creek Drive.
Yeah, great points, Mayor, that I would echo too. The way we define the C1 and C2 is maybe a better way to look at this, that the C3 is the optimal option of the three, where C1 and C2 are not fitting really at all for this type of development.
I just have two more questions with it. Where does this sit in relation to like flood zones, and do we have a shortage right now of C3?
So with the floodplain, there is some portions of it within the 100-year floodplain right now. And then also we're waiting to hear back from FEMA, but we do have that discovery map that does show that they are doing a detailed analysis on the Willow Creek watershed. So that's all subject to change. Once those maps come out here, I would say by summer, they'll be preliminary, and then we'll analyze those and get those out to the public. And then they'll do some more detailed analysis too on whatever comes of that. But that'll all, and that was all shown on their preliminary plan, and that was approved on the September 19th Plan Commission meeting in 2019. So then we looked into all of that. There's also wetlands in this area, so we had correspondence with the Corps to see what their obligations would be, and it'll basically be if there's any delineation necessary, that they'll do that, and then they'll have to mitigate either on or off site if they're impacting any, once their projects get a little more detailed.
Thank you, Brandy. Any other, do you have more, Michael?
I guess I'm kind of wondering too, just as we get into this area, because along Willow Creek Drive right now, there hasn't been a huge spur of development yet in the time that we've had it. I'm just curious, as of right now, what our infrastructure looks like up in this area anyway, to support this kind of development in this area, because I would imagine, being by the gravel pits, this probably has a lot of filling that needs to happen, and a really daunting amount of land development just to even make it usable. So I'm just kind of curious where we sit as a city with our infrastructure obligations that this might create.
Right. And two, they'll be required to put in all of the infrastructure, and that it would be to city standards, and that then we would take it over. But there's also culverts, and the developers, J&J Land Sales, had approached the council probably 6 months back, if not more, about what we would be interested in if we want to cost share anything. With it being city land is adjacent, that's what they'll have to go through city property to connect to Willow Creek Drive. So they had approached the council at that time, if you guys remember, about participating in the cost of the culverts, and we weren't interested because it is private development, and that if they need to cross over city property, that they would pay for it. And then typically with 28th Street also as a collector route, and typically the developer will be obligated to pay for a local street section, and that the city would pay for the upsizing, but that would also need to be approved by council through a development agreement when the plat comes forth.
Can I ask another one?
Sure.
Do we currently maintain around 31st Street, like plowing or anything on those roads? I think those are gravel right now, but I'm just curious what the city obligation is right there. And then looking at this, how much road is this going to potentially be adding, and then what would be the maintenance cost on that when we end up inevitably having to repair it?
So for 31st, it's basically all within the county. We do have some property farther south that is half county, half city. So this was brought up, and I believe now the county is just maintaining it. But they were doing like half and half.
Okay.
I believe. I can't speak to say how that exactly got handled, but we did address it, and Rob figured it out with the county.
I think they bartered, and there's some other roads where like the annexation goes to the center line, and rather than maintaining half of the road, they take a different section which is similar, and we would maintain one, they would maintain the other. Just
Yeah.
kind of a trade-off. Yeah. But you're right, this is going to be a road built on a wetland. Those are the ones that are most expensive to maintain because they don't tend not to last as long. They're more expensive to build because you have to remove some of the wetland material and replace it with better material and use fabric, and it's a challenge to build a road in these conditions, and it's also a challenge to maintain. Plus, there's not a lot of, there won't be any development on the city-owned part. So it's a road with no potential for property adjacent to contribute through taxes
Right.
for the cost of the maintenance of that road. So those are all good points for the council to consider in deciding whether or not to approve this.
Yeah, and two, the details of the platted area will come forth. This was just the annexation and zoning. The details will come with the development agreement. And then another thing to note is that they'll have to install a lift station, and they'll be upsizing the sewer so that it can accommodate for development farther north when that happens. That I believe that they're asking for city contributions to upsize. So all things that we'll analyze through, we're reviewing the construction plans right now. We'll approve those before we bring a plat and development agreement to council to make sure that everything coincides.
I guess, and I realize this is a first reading. I find it interesting that we question mark and think about how much it's going to cost to bring on 3 police officers, but the idea of doing this is so feasible when the price tag is going to be significantly higher than that is, with much longer term obligations to fulfill. So just something to be thinking about as we go forward. Just make sure you think the whole thing through.
Yep, definitely.
And I don't know if anybody answered your question about the availability of C3 land. Anybody want to take a whack at that?
I would not know the answer to that question, Mayor, off the top of my head, but that is information we'd love to look into and gather and share if that's desired. I don't know, Brandy, if you would know that off the top of your head.
Well, and we had discussed this a little bit at Plan Commission where Liam Culhane had brought it up about the infrastructure and kind of looking at commercial development or just property in general when we're annexing and zoning and the cost of that. And I think that what he was getting at more so is that we do have the East Park development that is vacant, that we have Willow Creek Drive running through. We do have some development happening there now, but just that, it's the availability that we have. I mean, it's not like we don't have any lots available for commercial development today that are shovel ready.
I think it's important to note also that the owner in this particular case, obviously land ownership, and those owners willing and wanting to develop is a major factor in what comes forward to these boards and to you as a council to approve these developments, because they're the ones obviously with interest in doing such and putting and investing the time and money into that. I don't know as though J&J has other C3 property that he could be developing, I guess is what I'm getting at. So he's trying to make that available through the property that he does own.
Right. In its proximity there to adjacent commercial development.
Right. Good questions. Any other questions? All right, thanks, Brandy. We'll move on to the next one, which is the first reading of ordinance number 20-09, amending the zoning district map of the city of Watertown, South Dakota, for the property generally located in the north of Willow Creek Drive to be known as the Lakes of Willow Creek, First Edition, from I-1 Light Industrial District, I-2 Heavy Industrial District, and BP Business Park District to C3 Highway Commercial District. So we touched on this, that this land that we're talking about here, there's another, Mitchell, maybe you can forward the image to see the next view. This land was annexed and zoned as I-1, I-2, and Business Park a number of years ago, and now we're considering back up just to that one right there. So everything that's hatched, the zoning is changing to C3. This was not originally brought in as a commercial zone. It was brought in as industrial and business park. So the owner is requesting a change in zoning. And this has already passed through the Plan Commission, true?
Correct.
And the Plan Commission recommended approval. This is the first reading, no action tonight, but this is what Michael was referring to as, okay, we have this industrial land that hasn't developed, and do we really need more commercial land?
Well, I guess why the change of heart? If you came in with an initial plan that you had in place, why did that never take off? And why did we approve it as a land change and annexing it in the first place when there wasn't a plan to actually do something with it right out the gate? It's hard for me to, I'm just speaking with zoning in general, it's hard for me to want to annex things in when there's not already a project in mind. It's a little easier and a little more palatable when there's an actual plan to be put in use. Because, again, the long-term obligations when we bring in more like this creates a lot of liability for us as a city, and we're always scared about where are we going to get these funding mechanisms, how are we going to be able to afford these things. And when there's not a hard set plan already in place, it's a little difficult. I mean, this is a little bit of a backtrack for us anyway, because we already annexed it, we already have it. So I understand trying to make it into something usable, but
Yeah, it didn't take off with industrial development.
no, and I wonder why it didn't take off with industrial development. Was it that the obligation to update that land and make it usable was too high?
I think it's a very expensive place to develop due to that 28th Street going through public property that serves a private development. There's no return on that investment there for those people. And so they just didn't ever make it. And until that happens, there's no sewer out there right now. They would have had to put in a lift station. So that's probably why it didn't develop. It's costly.
Right. I'm just saying it's not necessarily when you're developing, and a lot of literature would support this, it shouldn't be the city's obligation to create that infrastructure first and then have people come to it. The idea is that private business invests in their land, brings it on, and then we take it on.
If I could add to, so the developer changed hands, the property changed from, Stromseth used to own it, and then now J&J Land Sales has purchased it. And then they do have a plan for development, and that's where their preliminary plan was approved then in September.
Okay.
For the Plan Commission. So that's reassuring. And then two, that they would be obligated to pay for the majority, unless the oversizing is negotiated with council, they would pay for all of the upfront cost of the infrastructure improvements to make their lots sellable.
There are platted rights of way that exist today. Are those the ones that exist, or the ones they propose?
These are the ones they propose.
Okay, but they're similar. They were platted, and our ordinance says they'll build them in 2 years. And it's obviously been more than 2 years. I don't know what the development agreement says.
They actually negotiated like gravel roads, even with then didn't acknowledge all of the right of ways. It was an odd development agreement. That was in 2010.
Okay. Yeah.
So then that's another thing too, that a vacation will be coming to formally vacate all of the right of ways that were platted previously, because then they'll come with a plat that will show these right of ways that you can see up here. And then when they do that, when they plat right of ways, then the development agreements today, then we make sure that all of the infrastructure is built to city standards within 2 years. And then inspecting it, like Heath brings those streets to you guys then for approval or the warranty period to begin.
Right. Councilman Holeen?
Thank you, Mayor. I assume that the developer is not here tonight?
No.
And so we won't be learning any more about this said development other than the promise that there is one.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they'd come for the public hearing, but so the annexation and zoning and the rezone, these are just the first readings, and then at the March 16th meeting, then that'll be the public hearing where hopefully they come to answer any questions that you guys have.
I should say this is the developer of Valley View that owns this now and is a competent contractor of building roads, which is not true of the previous owner. Wasn't a road builder. So that makes this expensive infrastructure a little bit more feasible if you own backhoes and equipment and have workers, so.
Yeah, and if you guys have noticed too, he has done some cleanup work out there where he wants to get this to be, he wants it to look nice and to add to the Willow Creek development and all of what we have going on there, so he's hoping to make an improvement.
Councilman Roby?
Randy, we've got in our history not too long ago some development agreements that weren't very well written. And with what little you just told me, I get the impression we're improving our hand meaningfully here. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, from what they did in 2010, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. And we're trying to, obviously, looking back at development agreements, they haven't been consistent, and we really want to strive for that, because then it's not like every development you're looking back and being like, well, what was the deal here, or, what was decided? So we want consistency.
If I could expand on that, Mayor. Councilman Roby, to that point, most generally speaking, the terms in the development agreement are outlining the responsibilities of the developer to build certain components of public infrastructure. It lays out there specifically what water, sewer, streets, things of that nature of public infrastructure they're responsible to build in order for us to approve their plat and file their plat. And so one of the things we're looking at in trying to streamline and make these development agreements more consistent is hinging them more closely with the approved construction plans. What plans are they submitting to us? Civil engineering stamped plans are they submitting to us for review and approval? And then tying those more directly into that development agreement, and maybe even perhaps referencing those approved plans in that development agreement, so that the two go hand in hand. We found too some shortfalls where a certain development agreement may or may not reference the approved plans. There may or may not been a set of approved plans and things of that nature that we're trying to overcome and get past as well and move forward productively. So it works well that way.
Great. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, we're on item F, authorization for the Park and Rec Department to proceed with bidding and construction for the Zoo Animal Care Building and 2020 budget supplement from the Capital Improvement Fund in the amount of $540,000. I have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Roby. And we have Terry Kelly, the Park Director, and Dan Miller, the Zoo Director, here to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mayor. Where we're at, we're definitely back, and we're about to the end here. So this comes with a recommendation from both Lake Area Zoological Society and the Park and Rec Board. And a supporting document, if you go down one more, the engineer estimate for the animal care building, just doing it in a single phase, which is what our plan is the 1.54 million versus the two phase, which was 1.773. With the donation that we did receive, we are here before the council to ask for $540,000 to add to the $1 million donation to go ahead and start the final design project, the bid and construction of the animal care building.
Okay, Councilman Vilhauer.
A couple questions. First of all, Kristen, procedurally, is it just a supplement of 540, or is the full 1,540,000 with $1 million coming in from the Zoo Society?
The budget supplement will be for the total, the 1.5.
Okay.
Yep.
But, so tonight it's just 540 is all that we're acting on.
Yeah, the actual budget supplement will come at a whole ordinance revision. This is just to kind of state that this is the city's portion that we're kind of moving forward.
Okay. Second question then is, as far as a timeline on this, I had a chance to visit with Dan and Terry this morning. I took a tour of the zoo and saw some areas of the zoo that very few people get the opportunity to see, and very interesting. And just it did emphasize the need for this facility. But now the question I've got from the construction standpoint, I mean, we don't have a whole lot of time in 2020 to get a project bid out and constructed in 2020. I mean, can we bid it in 2020, and then if we don't get, if the bids come in off the chart because it is getting late in the season, can we then rescind that and bid it out again for 2021? Or can we bid it initially for 20 and 21 construction? You hear my question, just trying
Yeah,
to,
we can bid it in 2020, and if the bids are wrong, we can bid it in 2021 in January.
okay, and that is okay from the donors' perspective or timeline as far as what they're
Yes.
expecting
Yes.
of the city?
Yes, it would be.
Okay.
Is there, yes, I have a motion by Billhauer and a second by you. Councilman Roby.
Kristen, give us a quick review of the budgetary scenario here.
The animal care building was actually in the long-term capital, so I have been accumulating some funds for that, which we do have enough to do the $540,000, and then with the $1 million donation. So essentially what I will do is I will bring forward a budget supplement ordinance. That's the 2 reading ordinance. There's a few other things that'll be part of that as well. So at one of these next meetings, I'll bring that forward, and then that will give the Park and Rec that authority to spend up to the 1.5.
One thing that is, been debating whether to say this or not, because, I mean, we got this fantastic donation that's making this possible for us, and I don't want to appear to be ungrateful. Very, very grateful for it. However, it's a floating amount, kind of, and I don't know that the council understands that, and so there will be an amount deducted from the $1 million donation to cover, like $125,000 will come off of it for the sale of stocks. And if the stocks.
No, it's not 125,000. It was, the stocks were, as actually.
Okay, will you please explain that to the council?
Sure. When he sells the stocks, they'll be $1,500. And what will happen with then the stocks, it'll go into a CD under the Zoo Society. So that's basically what the transfer will be. So.
Okay, and you had mentioned to me it depends on the value of the stocks when he sells
Well,
them.
I
And the
think
stock
the-
market went down, and so the value of the stocks.
Would probably go down, but I think we'll sell it at a time where we'd get our money worth. Or he would make do with the $1 million donation.
Okay, so is this, and I'm just wanting them to know there, maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 0.5%, maybe it's 5%. What kind of?
For why, when we're gonna try to sell it at $1 million.
Yeah, okay, but
Okay.
that's up, when you say we, does the council have to be involved in that?
No, the council isn't, because it's actually a Zoo Society donation, and I'm in charge of the account because the donor wanted it that way.
Okay, so the Zoological Society is dealing with all the
Yes,
gray area.
yes,
The
yes.
amount that the council can count on $1 million.
Yes.
And I think that's the point is, we're here before the council asked for 540,000.
Right.
So therefore, if the bid opening is 1.54, the million needs to come from somewhere. And
Right.
at this point, I'm here to ask for the 540,000.
Okay, all right, just, Dan had mentioned that to me and made me a little bit nervous, so I feel better now, thank you.
Well, I think it'll be fine. Like I said, the donor promises $1 million, so
Yeah.
he'll fulfill that.
Okay, very good. Other questions? No other questions? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are down to old business. Item A is authorization for the professional services agreement with TSP for the animal care facility to be amended from a contract amount of $64,000 to $84,364 plus applicable taxes and expenses. The budget supplement will follow at a later agenda. I do need a motion. Motion by Holene and, no, this is action, and second by White. This is the approval that the council gave for the architectural services, which the $64,000 was stated, and that was the action, and then the contract documents came, and they said 84,000. And that was originally because it was going to span 2 years, and 20,000 was gonna come next year. But the contract is now, and the Zoological Society has assured they'll make up the difference. So we can be confident that the money is all there. But I do have to change the contract. I have to be able to sign a contract that says 84, not 64. So that's why this is on as old business. It's just modifying it. The council's not obligating any more funds through this action. It's just modifying your action to match what the contract says. Is that clear? Any questions about that? All right, look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. And then I will have some old business. I know Reed would like to give an update on the committee for the ice arena, so thank you for agreeing to do that, Reed.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to tell everyone in the community that we've been very hard at work in our committee, and we've been really vetting all the questions, all the ideas, because we want to, when we come with a proposal, we want it to be the one. And we want it to be one that everyone has at least the assurance that we have answered the questions to the best of our ability. We have plotted out everything, taking into consideration everything that we can. And when we come with that plan, we want it to be that final proposition that Watertown will move on to finally put the ice question behind us as a community. I know that that is the desire among us as a council to be problem solvers. I will just say this problem has gone on long enough. But let's not focus on the negative or the past, because that's done with. We can't do anything about it. Let's focus upon who we all are here up on the council and in the community. We can be problem solvers, and we can finally bring this issue to a solution. And that's what I want people to focus on. Forget everything that went wrong in the past. Let's just focus on solutions. So the idea is, I believe we will come with a proposal in 2 council meetings. Cannot promise that, but that is our goal. When we do that, part of the reason why we do that is we want a timeline that forces action to start moving, because number one of which, we want this put behind us and moving forward as a community and as user groups and kids and for everyone in Watertown. We want to put that call out there because we've heard lots of rumors about people who would be willing to help, raise money in a capital campaign to offset construction costs and things like that, and also things that they would like to see in arena. This is the time for people to step forward in the community, to come forward to us in the small committee that we have. If you are interested in helping out in any way, now is the time to step forward, make your voice known, because this is going to be real, and we want people who are willing to help us move forward as a community and get this finally put behind us. I want to focus, this is all really good stuff that we've got going on now. And because we are finally committed to just getting this done. We can joke about that we just need to move on, but also the goal is the same. We want to do something great for Watertown, solve this problem, and just get it done. And I believe that we will. So I encourage the community to step forward, let your voices be heard, come forward if you're willing to help. We would greatly appreciate it. You'll learn more about it, hopefully, in 2 council meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I've been saying that whenever I get the chance, that we can build this arena. We can do this, but we can't do it without community support. So now's the time. All right. Any other old business? Councilman Roby?
Heath, you gave us some good news on Cherry Creek last meeting. Anything different, a change, or just thought I'd check?
No, I appreciate that, Councilman Roby. Nothing new to report. We're still communicating with the developer and coordinating the grading project.
right, thanks. Other old business?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may just give a preliminary heads up, we did open bids for the wastewater treatment facility admin building. Those bids are under review right now by both our consultant and the state. But preliminary numbers showed that our apparent low bidder came in at a very good price of just over $3.5 million. If you recall, our loan amount was around $5 million, and our engineer's estimate was $4.8 million. So good numbers on that structure for the wastewater admin building. We'll have the formal bid recommendation to you likely at the next council meeting here.
All right, thank you. That is good news. Anything else? Okay, new business. I do have a little bit of new business. The city will be putting out a request for proposals for a consultant to guide us through the process of hiring a city manager. We'll be doing that in the very near future. There won't be any council action until we have a contract to propose, but we want to get moving on that city manager, and this may be way too soon to be starting the process, but if that's the case, our consultant will tell us. So rather have plenty of time to do it than not enough time. Any other new business? Councilman Vilhauer?
Speaking of good news, if I'm not mistaken, we received word recently that we received a nice grant for the 3rd Avenue Bridge project. $1.3 million, something like that?
Yes, Councilman Vilharo, that's correct. That the grant application we'd applied for was successful this go-round through the BIG, the big Bridge Improvement Grant Program through the state. And we'll definitely have some more specifics on that coming forward to you as well, but that was recently released by the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, and I would like to say I heard it in the media. I did not hear that from the DOT. Have you gotten anything?
I heard it from our consultant, so no, I haven't seen anything formal yet from the DOT.
Thank you, media. I don't remember which one it was, but. All righty. Any other new business? Councilman Albertson?
Just congratulations to all the winners at the banquet the other night.
Yes.
I don't have a list of them, but certainly congratulations on their efforts for the city.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes. We had our City Awards banquet, and we have one of the recipients in the room. Jillian Pifley got the Rookie of the Year for a city employee working for less than 3 years and already making significant improvements. So I don't think there's anyone else in here. And I don't have them off the top of my head, but seeing Jillian there. It was a fun time. Any other new business? Any liaison member reports? None? Any announcements? Oh, Councilman Vilhauer.
Actually, I did have an update from the utility side. We've been watching some legislation out in Pierre regarding the REA, the territorial electricity issue, and House Bill 1262, which looks to be the one that could cause Watertown the most issues, did pass last week fairly, but very sizable margin. Now, I don't know when the Senate will take that up, but need to keep that in mind that hopefully the Senate will do something differently, and we have no idea where the governor stands on this either at this point.
Thank you. All right, any other announcements? Councilman Holeen?
I just want to say something to Dee Dee. This is an announcement. Back at Christmas time, you had a poll going, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And I want to make the announcement that it most definitely is a Christmas movie.
Thank you. We needed that. Okay. Anything else? We do have a need to go into executive session this evening in order to discuss and consult with legal counsel on contractual matters, and we do not expect to take any action upon coming out. So we will be going into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2. Have a motion by Albertson and a second by Hoyer, I think. You? Yeah, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.